Good day, driver. So today I'm going to show you how the starter system work on a car. So basically how the starter system work is that the vehicle starting system provides an efficient and reliable methods to crank the engine. An internal combustion engine needs air, fuel, and an ignition source to operate. The engine crankshaft must rotate to draw in and compress an air-fuel mixture in the engine cylinder. The starting system converts electrical energy from the battery into the mechanical energy from the starter. This energy is then used to crank the engine. So basically, the battery provides electrical energy to the starter, and the starter provides a mechanical startup to the engine. So basically what happens is that once you turn the ignition, this is the ignition switch, draw the current from the battery to the solenoid, and also this is the switch to operate the solenoid, and this is what create the mechanical startup, okay, to crank the engine. Okay, next, the major parts of the typical starting system are battery, an electrical storage device, and the source of current for the starting system. Okay, next is the ignition switch. Ignition switch right here. The main control device for the starting system. Okay, so the reason why this is the main control device is because if this is not working but the starter is good, you won't start, because this still need to create current from here. Close current to the starter, and you get the starter to start up. Okay. Okay, so the next one is the starter, a high torque electrical motor that cranks the engine. So once the power got to the starter, this is what cranks the engine to make the engine start. Starter relay, an electrical device that opens or closes a circuit in response to a voltage signal. Okay, so the relay is also played an important part of the starter. You need relay because those are important for the wires also. Okay, so the next one is starter solenoid, an electromechanical device that, when connected to an electrical source such as a battery, produce a mechanical movement. Some systems use both a relay and a solenoid. Neutral position switch, a switch that prevents the starter relay or solenoid from closing when the vehicle is in gear. Okay, so those are very important parts. These parts are used in two separate electrical circuits: a high current motor circuit, which is red, and a low current control circuit, which is blue. The high current need to operate the starter, which is 150 amps or more, requires a heavy gauge cable. Okay, so this is the high current wire. All right, so this is very important, and this is what create the power to get the starter to start up, draw the most power. It is not practical or safe to route this high current circuit through the ignition switch and dashboard. Instead, the ignition switch controls a circuit that supplies low current to the starter relay or solenoid. The contact of the relay or solenoid control the high current path to the starter. So basically what it's saying is this ignition switch, you cannot high power this wire to this switch. This is independent by itself that control the solenoid. Okay, so this basically is like a remote. Okay, and that's why you saw it have the all these switch and usually relays and all this thing between these wires, because this is just like a remote. So even though the starter always gonna be powered high current already automatically, but to start up the starter without you turn on the vehicle, this ignition switch, you won't start the starter. So this is always powered and ready to start. But remember, it need the remote basically too, which is the ignition switch, to start up the starter. So that's a separate wire, okay? Okay, so the contact of the relay or solenoid controls the high current path to the starter. When the contact closes, the starter connects directly to the battery. Okay? A park neutral position switch in the low current circuit controls starter operation. This switch prevents the relay or solenoid from operating with the vehicle in gear. The gear selector of an automatic transmission must be in park or neutral. A clutch pedal operated switch is used with a manual transmission. So what it's saying right there is that a automatic transmission usually got to be in park to start or neutral, okay, because operate with a switch. And the clutch, that's a manual. Usually a clutch transmission, you don't need a starter, you could always push to start, okay, because like a different connection and different transmission, and that's a manual transmission. Okay, so we're going to move on now. How does the starting system work? Okay, so the battery is the source of electric current to operate the starter. So you need electric current from the battery to operate the starter. And as you can see, this is the high current wiring. Okay, the low and the high current circuits control where and when the current flows. The starter converts this current into the mechanical torque, which is turning power needed to crank the engine. With the ignition switch in the start position, low current flows from the battery. It flows through the ignition switch and the park neutral position switch to the starter relay or solenoid. This closes the contact in the relay or solenoid and completes a high current path from the battery to the starter. With current applied, the starter cranks the engine. Okay, so that's how it works. Crankshaft rotation brings air and fuel into the engine cylinders. A high voltage spark created at the spark plugs ignites the air-fuel mixture in the cylinders. Power from the burning fuel in the cylinders provides the energy to maintain engine operation. So basically what happens is that battery create the electrical energy to the starter create mechanical power to start the engine. Really and truly, once the engine start up, to be honest, you really don't need this anymore, which is the starter and the battery anymore. But because of you got to turn off and turn on, yes, you're gonna need these. Okay, but engine usually once you start up an engine independently, you're gonna just keep moving. Cause basically what runs the engine is the gas, the air, all those, the intake, fuel, gas, and air run the engine. okay, but these just operation just to get the engine started. Battery and battery electrical to starter mechanical power, start up the engine. Okay, so hopefully this help. I just trying to get an understanding to you guys our starting system work. Okay, so thank you, and hopefully it helps. And if you're interested, just hit the like button, or you could just subscribe to the channel. Whenever I put up videos, you get it. Okay, have a blessed day.